I will introduce is a magazine which is about climate change, but not only climate change. And I thought that the most entertaining way to do that was through a video. So we'll see a short video. It's 6 minutes long, which tells what's behind this product. What are the choices that we made to communicate climate change, climate impacts, and climate action in a way that we hope it is quite effective and engaging for the public. So we can start the video and then I will say a few words. Maybe also is not spoken. Very Bhutanese, it's all homemade. The 3 actors you see are 3 young colleagues of us from the Regional Environmental Agency of Friuli Venezia Giulia. They volunteered to act in this little movie. And the aim is to show that this publication is meant not as a professional publication for which you only to be used at work for studying purposes, but it is meant to be a sort of magazine that anybody can enjoy reading in the weekend. And it is not just produced by one institution, but by 8 institutions belonging to this working group, which is called Klima FWG Working Group. And one of our aims is to promote the climate literacy among the local population. So we did a brainstorming session and we came up with the idea because we have a lot of knowledge that we produce every year, and we need to translate this knowledge in a way that it becomes understandable and interesting for everybody. And a lot of authors contribute every year. They are from very different disciplinary backgrounds, and that's why every year we have different topics in the fantasy. It's not always the same topics, the same things. So we try to make it attractive by making it look like a popular science magazine. As you can see, 3 editions we had so far. And when you look inside the magazine, you find an illustrated summary, so you can choose the themes you are more interested in. And when you look to the articles, we will see we have some things that help you understand the context very quickly. First of all, there is a lot of information, so we try to help people navigate all this information by organizing the articles into thematic sections. And when you get the single articles, in first call you find a very short abstract that allows you to grasp the main messages of the article. There has always been a barrier in communicating climate change, which is called psychological distance, because people often perceive climate change as a very far away issue in space and in time. So we try to show people that climate change is happening here and now. Then we start from local climate change, and then we zoom out to help people understand how what is happening locally is connected to what is happening on a global scale. And then another key principle for us is to help people understand how everything is connected and to overcome climate anxiety. So we don't only speak about climate change and impacts, but also about what you can do about it, both reducing gas houses emissions and adapting, like we did in these articles about wildfires. We also get these solutions to reduce future risks. And then we have this sort of ABC of climate, these pages or boxes where we explain basic concepts, methodologies, words, and so on for non-expert readers. We also use a lot of visual communication, and we try to have our graphs look quite friendly for not expert readers. And we use a lot of infographics also, and a lot of photos, preferably local photos and from the authors, like the one you can see. Some of them are really beautiful. Also, we try to show what is actually going on, activities that are being carried out And last year we introduced this new section, which is called Climate Change Task, and there we addressed also psychological and ethical themes like climate justice and kind of emotions, and also some practical information about what we can do about the climate through our everyday choices and behaviors. We have some insights which allow readers to go deeper into the topics if they want to. And we also have some practical advice. For example, here how you can protect yourself from mosquitoes and heat waves. And so that's the idea. A magazine, an enjoyable one, a one that also young people can really can be willing to read. And only a few copies actually are printed, but you can easily find it online. So it is really accessible to everybody. It is free, it is licensed under Adriatic Common license, and all the work is done in-house by the group, and these are their executions and the people belonging to the team that Giulia about the group. So, thank you for your attention. Voilà. This was the video, and I've got just a few slides if you're interested to, because we'd like to point out a few topics that may be more interesting for the audience. Oh no, it is up here. Guess up. Really just a few slides because you've already seen this video introduction, and so just we focus on a few contents like this one. As you've seen, we tackle a lot of different topics, and some are related to well-being and health, both of people and animals. And here we have an example of how we use these mini abstracts. You can see that in a few words, in a very simple language, I translated it into English, you will really get the main messages of the article. In this case, we explained that these indexes, climate indexes that we use to measure climate discomfort, are increasing because of climate change, because we have many more days when we suffer from heat and humidity, and this thing is going to get worse in the future if we don't reduce our greenhouse gases emissions very quickly. Then another article was about Interreg project, a cross-border project between Italy and Slovenia, and that might be interesting because often maybe you hear of these European-funded projects, but they really can be useful to tackle problems that affect the people locally, like the urban heat island phenomenon. And we have these insights that allow you to go deeper into the topics, and this is another example. This is about different vulnerable categories of people and why they are why they are more vulnerable to heat waves than other people, and which are the risks specifically for each of these categories. And as you've seen in the video, we also tackle these psychological implications of climate change. We had last year an article about eco-emotions, and the main message is that eco-anxiety is not an illness. It is quite a healthy reaction of our brain because we are facing a really serious issues with climate change and changes in our environment on a whole general basis. And the point is that we should try to turn this anxiety into a motivation to act. That was what the article was about. And here also we used an infographic to show all the different emotions, because there is not only anxiety, but a whole range of emotions that we can feel when tackling these issues. And these are the examples about the practical advice that you've seen in the video, because we have diseases which are brought to us by mosquitoes and other little animals. And so we can do something to prevent them by limiting the diffusion of these animals, or trying not to be bitten by them. And also we can protect ourselves from thermal stress, especially people who have to work in the open air in the sun in summer. And I would conclude with this consideration. When we talk about climate literacy, it is not just about understanding how the climate affects us, but also about understanding how we affect the climate with our everyday choices and behaviors. For example, what we eat is very, very important and can make the difference. We are a lot of people, and if everybody changes his way or her way of eating and choosing food a little bit, also with changing a little bit our traditional cooking recipes, that could make a difference. So we have these articles where we explain also how what we eat affects the environment, both from a climatic point of view with the carbon footprint, but also with the water footprint and ecological footprint. And so that was my little focus after the video. Thank you for listening. Hola.
Thank you, very kind. You can just show how big the magazine is. How many pages are?
The first edition was very thin, and then it went out of control, and it became like a book. Because the nice thing is that people, all these authors, are not compelled and pushed to produce articles. They come running, offering written tradition. That's really something amazing. You are a much better. No, such as like to see that more museum way made accessible to the public.
Hello to everybody. I would like to present efforts of members of Slovenian Venerological Society. I'm working like clinician in general hospital, and my task is this fourth line. So we're working with patients, and these are being paid for. But prevention is not really paid from our insurance company. So we are working on these other two layers like our hobbies in our society. And we are very concentrated on education of public, on primary prevention, so to recognize what is the risk factor for skin cancers, and a little bit on legislation. In kindergartens, we succeeded with the help of National Institute for Public Health, that there are more shadow places. And on secondary prevention, we are working on educating how to recognize dangerous diseases on our skin, and we are promoting self-examination every month. And we try to at least educate our general practitioners. Because in Slovenia, skin cancers are growing fast. We can see that melanoma, this red hole, is rising from 80s in the previous century, and also non-invasive type of melanoma in situ, melanoma from the start of this century. And we also can see that not melanoma skin cancers That means mostly here are keratinocytic, that means epithelial skin calypsos arising since the start of 90s or previous century. So skin cancers are in Slovenia common. Altogether, this is the first common cancer for both gender, but for and still rising. And the fear is that in next 25 years we can expect even 40% enlargement of this type of cancers, because now the people who take sunbath in the young will be older, so the trouble will be even more pronounced. The skin melanoma is mostly arising on the trunk and in males, and trunked legs females. Why? Because the type of sun exposure is intermittent serious. That means in holidays people take off their clothes, and many of them were sunburned. So this is the reason that the usually covered places are the main place for melanoma. But non-melanoma skin cancers are the result of decades of moderate exposure that makes tanning of the skin. Suntan is a marker of damage, DNA damage, which is accumulated in the layers of the skin from which the skin is regenerated each month. So also the moderated UV exposure is dangerous. What's this? Do you know? It is low-grade sunburn, isn't it? I was a mentor to small research at elementary schools 25 years ago in one elementary school in Syria, and in 201 pupil, there was only about 1/5 that didn't get a sunburn before entering the elementary school. And many of them get sunburned several times before entering elementary school. Well, are sunburns still occurring today? I don't have data. I asked at school and I already have provision, but because we just started the new school year in the 1st September, it was not realized yet. I think there are tests of them, but people still want to tan in Slovenia. So we still have reasons to care about. So the need for prevention of skin cancers, yes. Primary, in the means of detection and avoidance of risk factors for curing patients with UV air protection. And secondary, to detect, this is the task of the patient, of people, of inhabitants, that detect something. And then diagnosis and therapy, and this is a type of fair system. But without detection, fair system cannot be successful if the patient is unculate. So, for better survival, we need to educate people to detect something on their skin and to search for advice at the general practitioner, which will decide what to do. So, we're looking for early signs. And we are working on all these fields with some programs. We make a program in kindergartens, setting the sun. We are working with occupational medicine, for working safer at outdoors, and we made some program with our melanoma group. I will show. The start of Association of Skin and Dermatologists on organized way was Sun School in 2002, and in some bigger places like Diana, Michael and Hopper, with hosted skin examinations of SMBS in tents and theater played for children, we started to inform them about dangers of the sun. Then there were some other activities like Day of the Sun and some and and since 2007 there is an organized program I already mentioned, Save the Sun, which is guided with National Institute of Public Health, and the aims to incorporate sun protective project in regular work of kindergartens and the first 3 years of elementary school at that time, and to repeat it each spring through educating the educators in kindergartens. And it was aimed to connect different resources, to use different means of information from lecture, press, electronic media, and games, and to stimulate adults into being a positive example themselves, to facilitate the spread of shadow areas in surroundings of kindergartens. It was was succeeded already in 2009. And since then, in number of preschool children immediately in the period of 2008 till last year was growing. And as you see, this is an example. They didn't only talk and draws, but they do also some activities outdoors, like learning about shadow rule. When the shadow of the body becomes shorter than the body, then you seek shadow. In also then the elementary school organized activities since 2010 are regular and spreading to the whole elementary school, teaching pupils about elements of sun protection. That means, like here, cats or degenerate caps, sunglasses, clothes that cover the body, also seeking shade and using sunscreens on the region of the body where we cannot cover them with clothes. And also using some gloves like satin nose for cats and some sleeves to protect these parts of body. In the secondary prevention, Eurobana Muma Day since 2008 is regularly introduced each May, and ESD is working on translation, printing, education, publication, and free examination for melanocytic fever in selected population group each period is performing. Then we organize the evaluation of the results and the press conference with the aim of raising awareness about residents about skin cancers, on performing skin self-examinations, on identifying dangerous changes, and which options they have for effective sun protection. And we usually held the cap of sun ambassadors like Koritsa Malets, this is the kitty guy, and there was also the former skier, Jurek Poshir, and so we tried to perform information, also the printing leaflets about information of what is dangerous on the skin and how should we cover the skin, how the changes on the face and the neck are not only the result of our age, but also of UV exposure in the past in people who are working outside or recreating outside, and how to be concentrate on changes in our surrounding about sun and to perform the run fix in the right way. here.
Si kdaj pomislil, koliko časa letno posvetiš športu, gledanju televizije, sprehajanju časa ali brskanju po spletu? Nameni 10 minut mesečno tudi svoji koži in redno spremljaj spremembe na njej.
Če odkrijete tanjši melanom, je večja možnost, da ozdravite. Poiščite več, a samo pregledovanju že danes.
Si kdaj pomislila, koliko časa letno posvetiš ličen, nakupovanju, kavi s prijateljico in gledanju najljubših modeljev? Nameni 10 minut mesečno tudi svoji koži in redno spremljaj spremembe na njej.
Ne spregledajte nastanka novih znamenj ali spreminjanja že obstoječih. Odkrijmo melanom pravočasno.
So the results are that individuals with detected cases of skin cancers were referred to for treatment, and in population the increase of the proportion of non-invasive cytomelanoma is growing, and the reduction of the average thickness of the invasive melanoma is the case nowadays. So in this way we get to improve the patient survival. The other task was work with occupational medicine, and before COVID pandemic, we had already some seminars and we prepared brochures for employers. And we are now working on preparation on vitamin D guidelines, and future task is also to promote suspicious occupational skin cancers. We would like to recognize and have a register for them. And we try to inform our inhabitants with the help of our meteorological society with some TV spots like this room.
Ko je vaša senca trajša od telesa, poiščite senco in se zaščitite z oblačili, pokrivalom ter zaščitno kremo. Pri kopanju uporabimo vse možne načine zaščite pred soncem, tudi oblačila. Z zaščito pred soncem preprečite zagorelost in nevarne spremembe na kožik. Obvezno kožniško opremo vključite tudi pokrivalo, sončna očala in zaščitno kremo. Uporabite hkrati različne načine zaščite pred soncem. Pred soncem se zaščitite z oblačili, ki pokrijejo kožo.
It's not only the reason that cats also can get skin cancer, especially on this region, which is some covered with fear. I chose the cat because the cats are individualists. They don't follow the herd like dogs and people. So we would like to make people to decide for themselves individually. We are not all the same. Somebody are more exposed, somebody are more vulnerable. So we would like that, at least in the case of cat, people would think with their own mind. I checked the results few times in kindergartens, and our educators, which were involved in the program Varno Soncem, sent with the sun in the first year, and these were results that they didn't make me happy, because they say that they use sunscreens, they use sunglasses, they even try to prevent sunburners, but long sleeves, they make the difficult to work in kindergartens, so they don't want them. And this made me thinking that I have to make legislation that our protective clothes at work should be healthy safe. So, because they are working outside with kinders, with children quite a lot, they should cover their skin as well. And they say that they don't prevent tanning so much. So there's a need of a clear message that tan means serious skin damage. And permanent skin cell damage with accumulation of somatic mutations is the cause of non-melanoma skin cancers. So in the past, people were covered. This was the area where the people decided to uncover their body. In the 80s, people in Slovenia, they are sunbathing. Now they are, at least young parents are trying to protect them and their children, but we still care workers which take off their clothes at work, and people in Slovenia, we are doing a lot of sports, recreation, and also bathing outdoors, and when it's warm, we still taking off our clothes. So we should, it's necessary to include UV radiation in the list of occupational carcinogens and can enable reporting of occupational skin cancer. And we are trying now to inform people about applications like SunSmart, which is promoted by World Health Organization, how to make the sun detection effectively. And this is quite a hard stone for now, because we cannot change thinking that when it's hot, we should take off our clothes in Slovenia. Yeah. So at the end, it's important what kind of example we are. If we want that something being changed, and I hope that you will find some promoters. I was talking before with disabilities, that some very popular people, which are influencers, should help us. So even this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's great to be here. My family's from Ljubljani, going back a long time. I thought it'd be maybe interesting for you to see the way we cover severe weather on television in the United States, because it's quite different than here in Europe. Just by way of reference, I broadcast at the very center of the North American continent. If you ever hear Mount Rushmore, where the famous faces of presidents are, that is in my viewing area. And also in my viewing area is part of the state of Minnesota, which is where many Slovenians came and settled in the past couple of hundred years. And if you go to the central part of Minnesota, you will still see many things Slovenia, because the farmers came over there. The land is very much like you have here at Slovenia, so I'm not surprised the farmers did that. And also the climate is very similar to what you have here. The only thing that you don't have is mountains to the west of you that create weak shear and cause severe weather. So I'd like to tell you about one day, about 6 weeks ago. We have these things occasionally called derechos. They're very long-lasting mesoscale convective systems, and they create severe weather and damage. Mostly they create very strong winds, but you also see embedded tornadoes, and you see embedded hail, and in some cases even a little bit of flash flooding can also occur if you have thunderstorm cells go over the same area repeatedly. Something that is very unusual compared to here is that during major events like tornadoes, hurricanes, or even derechos, television stations just interrupt their programming and instead start broadcasting about weather. No commercials, which means we lose thousands of dollars when we do it. We think it's kind of important. just to tell you how things develop during the day in my job. In the morning, I always go and I do the forecast at my house. I have an office. I spend about 2 hours a day creating the forecast for the day, and then I send it back to my television station, and my colleagues make the graphics that will be used noon and after. The other thing I do when we have big severe weather days expected is I send an email to the managers of the television station and tell them what I'm thinking. In this one, I told them I was expecting a derecho. I expected it to start in westward south, going to move across. I gave them a general time frame. And in the box, I said I would anticipate a lot of wind damage, and I think it's fairly likely we'll have to beef up our coverage and probably wall to wall on TV. And wall to wall means we just start talking about the weather and we don't stop talking about the weather until the severe weather threat is done. During the noon time hour, as the situation starts to develop, I'll send an update. A lot of times it's timing. In this one, I said the storm would hit Sioux Falls 12 hours later. This is very important because our television station, we switch over to propane when we see a big event that's going to hit my area, because you get power bounces and it's very difficult. You have all these computerized things. You can lose your all your data coming in. So the entire television station switches over to propane. We have a very large, it's about the size of a railroad car in our parking lot. And that's what we switch over to PowerVise. Here is just taste. We started at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We went through 10 o'clock at night. And this is kind of what that looks like. You're tuned in during a big event like a derecho.
You expect to see very strong thunderstorms. And as the situation has been developing in the last 24 to 36 hours, it's becoming more likely we're going to see a widespread destructive wind storm coming our way. Right. But now we have destructive thunderstorms. And Brian, these are firing up very quickly and very strongly, becoming severe rather quickly in the central part of South Dakota. I think there's going to be some pretty widespread destructive storms this evening.
Yeah, we do have a situation tonight. I know that answering phone calls, emails, a lot of folks are continuing to be very vigilant about the weather tonight and altering plans. So now that one is now tracking to the east at 45. It has 70-mile-an-hour winds and ping pong ball size hail with it. So just a little additional analysis on that. And again, I'm going to switch the source here so you can see how that one in particular on Highway 14 is certainly going to be a problem for Miller. And we want to give you a heads up because when they're moving at 45 miles per hour, that's not giving you a ton of time. In fact, Storm Tracker right now has that into Miller by 512 here, Jay.
You may notice one thing right here down near Winter, that color purple is a confirmed tornado. Brian Carson, you're looking here at, can we get our live cam up?
Let me go here to the green screen so we can show you. I think you can all see that. Right there is the tornado. So again, this is our Gregory live cam right now. We're looking due north of Gregory, and that's exactly where that stovepipe is coming down. So we're getting spotter reports of that right now.
All right, here's where we have the severe thunderstorm watch, the area in pink. And this is not your average severe thunderstorm watch. Isolated wind gusts to 90 miles an hour. That's a straight line wind that is going to produce tornado type of damage. Some large hail possible in excess of 2 inches. Tornadoes also possible, in fact, occurring right now. We have one warning here. That's the area to the west of the Millam area. This is the tornado we're just looking at right now, looking at from Gregory. It's moving in a southeasterly direction. There's a third tornado warning right down on the border with Nebraska. If you're in Sioux Falls, what do you think? I'll tell you what we're thinking. 8, 9 o'clock hour, we'll start to see some of these cells in the eastern part of South Dakota could be moving toward the Sioux Falls area. Very strong winds will be possible.
Tornado is observed, and this is south central Gregory County. Again, tornado located on the ground 10 miles northeast of Verk or 30 miles to the west of Lake Andes. That's our view on the east side of the storm. So the storm is coming toward the camera, or at least generally into Charles Mix County. Now, here's the second view. We're going to go back to Gregory. Okay, this is on the other side of the storm. Same structure, we're just looking from the opposite side.
The expectation is that these storms will be coming toward the Sioux Falls area. We're thinking like the 8, 9 o'clock time period. So we got a bit of time.
That's the third time, Jay, I've seen that consistently reported in the data here. So obviously, you know, spotters in there are continuing to report that.
Can you maybe show, I know you've got some of the pictures and videos available of that cell. We've been watching that since Gregory and from when it was north of Gregory. And it has been pretty consistent. Well, it looks like a land spoutish type of tornado there, but a tornado nevertheless.
But anyway, we went on for another couple of hours. There was widespread wind damage across our area. Lots of damage from tornadoes, but more than anything, very strong just winds approaching 90 miles an hour, which is about 143 kilometers an hour. So lots of damage from trees and things like that. The morning after we do something like this, the weather department just tells the people why we took out their programs the night before. It gives you a little bit of behind the scenes of what was going on.
Monday night, Jay Trobeck and Brian Parsons were live on air for over 6 hours, tracking the storms as they moved through eastern South Dakota and into northern Iowa.
We try to be on the air whenever we see what we think is a significant threat to people or property. I know that sounds simple, but it's something we take really seriously.
Behind the scenes, Scott Munt, Adam Rutt, and Jalen Borasit were also clocked in at home to keep our website and social media pages up to date.
And that's why we have 5 meteorologists here at Keloland TV. It takes a lot of people to get all that stuff done, and that's pretty important too, because we know people aren't always in front of the television set. You know, people are sometimes in front of their phones or computers. So we have to try and help everybody out, because at an event last night, we knew there was going to be widespread damage, and so we wanted to let people know what was going on.
Working long hours to help keep Keloland safe.
Around here, breaking news, breaking weather, it's what we do. That's why we're here.
Now, we all know that people are getting their weather information from their phones and other places. But the one thing we found in the United States, when there are big storms, big weather events going, people are still turning on the television. We're able to measure the audience. And so we know that in our area, about half of, it's hard to explain the ratings share. I'll tell you what it says. About half of all the television sets in our viewing area, half of all the television sets that were turned on were watching us. We also know that people actually moved away from what they were doing to turn on television, since more than a quarter of all the television sets were turned on and half of them were watching us. And plus there were another 6,000 people watching us on their cell phones. So people do go back to watching television when there are big weather events.
I see that there are several of my colleagues and also weather forecasters here in the audience. Can you just briefly outline what's the equipment of your TV station?
At my television station, I think we might be the only television station in the world. We own 3 Doppler radars. We also have these cameras all over the place. So I think now I have about 50 cameras. So we're really able, in all these cameras, we can pan zoom in and out. They're very strong ones. So we can see just about anything that's going on. We're pretty well equipped by television stations, so we're very lucky that way.
Do you also work with tornado chasers?
Oh, we do, not as much as we used to, but a lot of times they will come up and to our area because the ground is mainly flat, so it's easy to see and take pictures of tornadoes in great distance. So occasionally we will have them, or we can put them on the air using streaming, and plus we have our own streaming platform to use for that as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've really talked about that. I played with Jeremy, the science journalist at Euronews over 52. I know you were wondering. Born in 1972 when we had 327 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, we now have about 422. keeps going up every year, doesn't it? And I've been covering climate and environment related programs for a very long time, and I made a series called Climate Now on Euronews, which reported the latest climate data from Copernicus, and that covered a lot of adaptation kind of science stories around different countries. Here in Slovenia, we've done the story of your flood adaptation efforts. But today, actually, I want to talk about something a bit different, because I feel that we've tried, and you've all tried, and we do our best. I feel that we haven't got enough awareness and understanding of climate change. I feel that it's a subject that people, perhaps not you, but the general public don't really like talking about very much. I feel, and I think something that you raised, Ray, that it's different, it's distant. They feel it's a long way away from them. They don't necessarily feel that it concerns them. And so Fanny asked me to think about information and awareness raising, and I think there's some great different ways of doing it. And I'm just going to talk about one way of doing it. There's just an idea, really, for this time being. Now then, Harry, right. There we go. So my theory, after 30 odd years of doing this job, is that the things that motivate people when it comes to news stories, not necessarily motivate them to make it the #1 news story, because the #1 news story is either a celebrity or a certain dog. But if you look at the data, consistently successful stories will often resonate with audiences around questions of health and wealth. And when I say health, I mean it in the widest sense. A colleague said to me, what about wars? And I said, well, being killed in a war is a health issue for me, and obviously it could also be a wealth issue for you as well. But I think that those are the things that resonate with people and that they take action on, which is really what we want. We want people to start to make changes. What happened in Slovenia was the health and wealth of a lot of people just down the road from here were severely threatened by those big floods. Around my word cloud, I put some of the words that I think resonate with people as well, like food, floods and heat waves, family, home, fires. Those are things where you can have conversations about those things. But then around the outside are some of the words that we hear in climate change communication that become a bit more abstract, a bit more difficult to understand. And that takes me to my next slide, which is my kind of climate change buzzword bingo. If you spend as much time as I do listening to what PR people, European Commission, the directorates, etc., various kind of communication people, they talk about this stuff as if we're supposed to know what a nature-based solution is, as if we're supposed to know what a circular economy would be like. Has anybody here ever experienced the circular economy? No, probably not. Do they know what a smart city is like? I mean, beyond the smart, everyone's well dressed, it's quite tidy. Is that a smart city? I don't know. And what's a net zero world like? This is what we're supposed to be traveling towards by 2050. I don't know what that is. It's a completely uncertain concept to me. It's ill-defined. And I think that there are a lot of issues here that are genuine, profound and important issues related to climate change that we're not talking about in very accessible ways. We're not explaining to people this actually concerns them as well. It's not just somebody a long way away. It's you at your house. So here we go. Are we getting this right? Are we talking about this correctly? I then thought to myself, well, it's a public talk. I can see a bit of reaction, so I'll try something. I'll do an experiment. What would happen if I did a public information campaign about climate change? And that public information campaign was informed somewhat by my ideas around health and wealth. And my public information campaign would be aiming to get the message across that everybody should be concerned about this. Then I'll think about what are the words, what are the ideas that people come out with when they talk to me about this stuff. And I'm talking about non-specialist people when they talk to me, my psychic buddies, my family. Yeah, if you have a conversation in the past, what are the things that come up, and then how could you play with that and resonate with it and try and get this message of inclusivity across? which led me to this. Anybody know what one of those is?
Yeah.
I was a bit worried it might only be British people who knew what one of these was, because I think we were the ones who ate them and ultimately made them extinct. But maybe the Portuguese helped us, I don't know. Portuguese help us? We old up there, help us. The dodo. And I believe it also pops up in the Disney movie too, is that right? I don't watch all of the Disney. Anyway, global warming means 1 out of 20 species are at risk of extinction. Don't be me. You don't want to be that guy. Okay, let's move on, let's try another one. Who are you looking at? This one, I feel that we've wasted decades communicating around climate change with this guy. Because let's be honest, we don't see these characters very often in Slovenia. Do you have bears, but not polar bears? We don't go to the North Pole. We don't know what they're like. We don't go to those places. And if I went there, they'd probably want to eat me. And so a lot of people have kind of been rude about ecological and environmental steps and said, what are you doing? Just trying to save polar bear. I'm going to drive in our B8 car and I don't care. And so he's saying, well, who you look at? You as well. You're involved with this. Everybody loses, not just polar bears. And then I thought, okay, carrying on with these references for people who are not necessarily keen on climate change, actually, as a concept. They feel like they want to reject it or certainly not comfortable with it. What are some of the other things they reference when they're talking about it? They reference this young woman, who is brilliant as far as I'm concerned. I love her speeches. Here she is looking very, very angry. And I think she's been cast as a kind of angry teenager character. And a lot of men, particularly around my age, will kind of be quite rude about her, I think. I think they should buy a book of her speech in psychiatry and read them and realize that she's very, very smart. But the idea that it's her problem, not yours, is what I want to get across. Everyone is impacted by global warming, not just at Thunberg. And note also, quick sidebar on that one, is that, and this is a pet thing, it's unrelated to climate change. I think in communication, a lot of time people refer to women like their first name, and men to their second name. They'll say Greta and Trump. We don't say Greta and Donald, we don't say Thunberg and Trump. Make it that what you will, that'll lead to copy. Anyway, different conversation, different presentation. Let's carry on to another one. Another thing, one of the other things people think about when they talk to me about, mention the greenhouse effect. It's kind of not so much something you hear anymore, but you used to hear it a lot in the 1980s and 1990s. So this is our greenhouse. I covered space for a lot of time, so I don't feel this one necessarily works very well, or what I would like everybody to do is to spend 5 minutes talking to a genuine, real astronaut who's been to space. I've interviewed lots of astronauts. The first thing they tell you is how thin the atmosphere is. And it needs a better picture, but that is the first thing they say. And all the people going up in Jeff Bezos' rocket say exactly the same thing. They go, wow, it was very black. Oh my goodness, the atmosphere is very thin. And every day we did any, really, we probably emitted some fossil fuel gas into the atmosphere. Pretty much the food that you ate, everything you did. I'm sure there's some kind of footprint. So that's the idea there, inclusivity. This one, El Niño's concept, which is in the minds of people related to climate change. So that's a totally natural phenomenon in the Pacific. It does influence the severity of some of the climate change impacts that you might have. But we also all know that El Niño means the male child, and I just thought the photo was great. And then I thought, we have to think about the future. For everybody alive today, climate change is here forever. It's not going away in your lifetime. We don't know actually the weather of my youth. It just won't happen. So asking the question, is he ready to crop failures, wildfires, droughts, and floods? Would that provoke action, make people change how they operated in their daily lives? I don't know, you'll tell me. This is also another one which we've talked about already a little bit, and I think that it's something we should take much more seriously. Kind of joke being your last day being maybe you resigned from your job, but in fact it's your last day because you could die in the job, and the number of workers dying due to extreme heat in Europe is rising. It's rising around the world. It's a serious problem that we don't seriously enough, I don't think. And let's try another one. Trying to think about something a bit more positive. Sunshine makes you rich. We all know solar panels are cheap, and they're getting cheaper, and solar power is the cheapest and most reliable form of energy. Let's just install more of that. Careful not publishing any of this lot, by the way, because I don't have rights to these pictures, so you know, don't share widely. It's not picture. Don't share, especially the Greta one, not mine. Let's go into the last bit of a weird one, but I was thinking, when did climate change start? What are the reference points I have from that era? Climate change is on like Donkey Kong. It's happening now. I think that expression works if you're British or American, maybe. Also, these characters maybe would resonate more with somebody my age, but the fact is happening now, something I was trying to get across there. And then this one's for the scientists spot the difference between Venus and Earth. So, again, specialist interest really, I suppose. One's got runaway climate change, and the other one. So, how do we communicate around these things? How do we talk about it? What's the best way to do it? If you have the phone assistance to the science, make science great again. You can get a nice red cap with that written on it now, from the movement called We Don't Have Time, based in Sweden. The guy who actually first met Greta Thunberg when she was striking on her up is actually the guy who found it, You Don't Have Time. They're great. Check out what they're doing. They can get you make science great again hacks. But so I think we need to communicate that everybody's in this now, and it's happening now. I don't think we're doing it very well. That's one way of doing it. But I think we also need to make it personal and local and practical. So a lot of the time you'll hear politicians say, we need climate action. And it's like, that's the end of the speech. And I'm like, okay, what action would you like me to take today? Should I walk home now? I mean, I rode a bike. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to just become vegan now, just tomorrow? What action should I take? Would be an example. I really find that very, very frustrating. I think one of the best speakers on this is Bertrand Piccard. I don't know whether you know him in Slovenia. He's the guy who goes around the world in a solar-powered aeroplane. Swiss guy. Super smart. And he's got a lot of work on this transition that we need to do. And the fundamental question that he always says we need to be asking ourselves is not, basically punishing people by saying, we're going to take away this, we're going to take away that. What you should be saying to ministers, politicians, etc. is, do you want a modern economy? Now, I'm sure if he says a minister, it's just down the road here, or the president, would you like Slovenia to be an ultra-modern economy? And say, yes. That's the right question to be thinking about. That's right. Well, if you do that, well, we go, it's much clean energy as you can. You go fully adaptation in terms of installation of your homes, make sure that you're ready for extreme, where they have public information campaigns by family doctors about heat and health and skin care, and you just go for it. That's what a modern economy looks like, and that's what he's talking about. Who's doing it? I don't know. I think it's a massive opportunity that's lost or wasted at the moment. If we go on to Euronews 3, we'll come back down to earth and say, what do our audience really like? Well, it turns out they really like stories about toilet paper. And the number one story is the average European uses 20 kilograms of toilet paper a year. I don't recommend you wait for consumption, but really it's a story about health. Actually, if you read that story, it's a story about health. It's about some patient benefits. How do we find a sustainable alternative? The next one below it's the recent story about the Portuguese man of war. Don't suppose you have to appear in Slovenia too much, but it was a big story in Western Europe. And again, it's a health story, obviously. A total waste of time talking about COP, and arguably he might be right. This is a minister from from Papua New Guinea. And that was an extremely successful article. 60% of the viewers were from Russia. Why are the Russians interested in this? Well, they don't necessarily like multilateralism. Sorry if there's any Russians in here, but I think that's general, you could say that. That kind of multilateralism, anyway. And obviously their economy is enormously bound to fossil fuels. And so they don't want to see that since they died. That could be an argument. That's pure speculation on my part. But and then the story about motionless wind turbines. Our audience loves tech, and they love clean tech, and they like explanations, and they like to myth fast and to understand it. And obviously there's a little bit of wealth here because we know that's clean and green, probably going to be much cheaper longer term than fossil fuels, but there's also a bit of health in there, particularly for the wildlife people are concerned about, even though they are. And then the last one, Hurricane Kirk, which is obviously a health and wealth story. Yeah, what did I do in my program? Well, we tried to talk about practical issues related to adaptation a lot of the time, talking about Catalonia had their big drought. What were they doing literally? What were the hotels doing? What were the local companies doing? What strategies were in place? What was the future of them? Talking about health risks of working outdoors with a farmer in Greece, say, what's happened to his body, really, what's happening to his organs, at what point is he getting ill, is that working in this environment? Really fascinating stuff. If you've got solar panels, then you know that you're interested in keeping them clean, keeping them efficient. I think that story worked as well. Slovenia, we talked about already. Rectal community redrawing their maps because coastal erosion in part related to climate change and sea level rise. Again, if you're a property owner, you're concerned by those things. And wind farms managing variability, which of course everybody's interested in too, because they want to carry on being able to have the lives like this. So overall, I think we've got a lack of understanding of the huge nature of the problem. And I don't think we've also got enough tools for being able to answer that problem with practical steps. And so, as I say, people say climate action as the end of the speech, and I want more concrete suggestions on what to do locally, what can be done specifically, what's going to help me to stay healthy, and hopefully preserve my wealth into the future, and that of my kids too. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Tanya. Good afternoon, everybody. We've heard a lot of probably new information for most of us, or most of you. Some scary photos about skiing. And whenever I'm on a conference or meeting like this, I always conclude that changing information, communication, and education is the most important things. So I'm president of Croatian Meteorological Society, and I will talk about something which is on the track of what I just said. I will talk about the picture book, what kind of house is building the hedgehog family Ježić. Jež in Croatian means hedgehog. So the picture book is about the impact of construction and climate change to humans and the environment. So I will say something about the motivation, objective, targeted audience, and expected results. Some of the goals of Croatian Meteorological Society, HMD is the acronym, are to create and develop public opinion about significant issues in atmospheric sciences and meteorological practice, to promote and popularize meteorology, and to communicate with the general public, especially children and students. To achieve their goals, we have a lot of activities. Some of them are publishing. We publish a scientific professional journal, Croatian Meteorological Journal, which is published from 1957. We also publish books and other publications. And from this year, we publish also picture book. Another activity important in this context is cooperation with organizations and institutes in joint projects connected to meteorology. On the other hand, there is a consulting company, Greenika, that ensures implementation of green elements and circular economy into investment projects, especially green buildings. So the lady from Greenika company thought that maybe she could publish a picture book for small children about impact of construction and climate change to people and the environment. Since climate change is our topics, she approached to Meteorological Society and we started on that project. So the picture book is about the impact of construction and climate change on people and the environment. And the objective is to introduce green construction and adaptation to climate changes. The Hedgepond family Ježić is building a new house that meets the requirements of modern and ecological sustainable construction. Family consists of 4 persons, mom, dad, a son and a daughter. And children were on a field trip with their school, and they saw a very nice new building with smart rolling shutters, with solar panels, green roof with flowers on it. They were introduced to water recycling. They saw how waste is segregated. And when they came home back to their parents, they said, we have to build our new house that should look like this one. And they started, so the dad hired the architectural folk and he prepares plans. And they started to build a new house with new ecological insulating materials. And at the end, Ježić family has a new house that meets the requirements of modern and ecological sustainable construction. So every family member has his own room. New house has solar panels, green roof. They recycle water, they have a nice place in front of the house, and everything was very nice and sustainable. So the picture book is for children from 5 to 11 years or 12 years old. The whole story is in verse. My personal idea is maybe sometime later we made the music and the songs from the book. Everything is written in capital letters so that all the children can read it by themselves. And all important terms are in color, the same color as in glossary, because in the end the book has a glossary section, did you know, and a quiz, so the children can check what they did learn from the book and what we expect from that. First of all, we broadened our communication with a new audience, with small children. Then children are introduced to green construction and adaptation to climate changes. We hope that children will understand and get familiar with terms that they often hear from elders but they don't understand. And we hope that young generation will learn to be responsible society members that care about the environment and promote sustainable manners and life. So you have some copies of the picture book. You can take it, it's for free. You can also order if you understand Croatian. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Visna.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, everyone. So my name is Filip Bukowski. I work for the Irish Biological Service, and but specifically for impact-based forecast, and that's what I'll briefly touch about today. So, well, I guess the audience is quite interested in meteorology since you came here. And, well, you are aware of the warning that came out Tuesday for severe weather just yesterday. But I don't know how many of you got it in the form of the notification on the phone, for example, or how many of you got it from just directly web page of the meteorological service. So there are some ancient practicing meteorologists here. I say, yeah. So you would probably know it from the very source. But my point here is that there are many forms in which a warning can be delivered, and also the information within the warning itself is different. So I got mine on my phone. It was translated to English, so readily available for me. It had the time of the hazard, it had the location, and it had the description of the event. So there were, for example, statements about what I can do or what can I expect. And that's kind of, in my view, what impact-based forecasting is. It's not about telling when the weather will be, but what the weather will do. So instead of telling it's 70 milliliters of rain, well, that's a bit abstract if you think about known terms. But if by gear, it can flood my house up to the best floor, I'll be hurt and sorry. If then I know that, I'm maybe living in an area that is close to a channel or close to the river, I am more exposed. I need to take action, direct action. Maybe I need to take sandbags to protect from direct flood. Maybe again to install the water pumps to buffer for water out of the house, or maybe again to immediately evacuate because the rain is going to be so intense that it, might impact them. And many national weather services still do use that kind of binary thing of tell me about what the weather will be. So talking about the bodies, thresholds, when they pass the threshold, and then they talk about the warning. But what we're trying to do in Ireland and through a collaboration batteries, it's in Europe mainly, we try to transition to that impact-based forecast. So what the weather will do. And it is very important because it influences our behavior. You might not think about it, but it does. There is a lot of uncertainty in those events. Well, some more predictable, some are less predictable, but people still can get confused. If they hear there is a high likelihood of, a weather that is going to damage your house, it's a vivid front because it does add to person. But if you hear there is a prediction for 60 milliliters of rain in the next 24 hours, again, like I said, that's more abstract, and people do not have that psychological capability to make good decisions. It takes much more takes much more time before you decide appropriate action. So that's that gap between the confusion, information, and the decision. So there's the whole process out. And I want to talk about the preparedness because that information is not only important for the public, but it's also important for your emergency services. It's important for your local authorities. If you have a knowledge about possible impacts, they can prepare. They can maybe, put their fire trucks in different parts of the country or at different parts of the province. They can talk about related hazards through storms, floods, heat waves. Again, each event is different and each event requires a different action to take. So with those pieces of information, we can take necessary precaution to keep ourselves and communities safe. And I think importantly, it also ties up to the climate and adaptation. I know that Jeremy doesn't like to talk about it, those different take action victors. It needs to be vivid, and I do agree. It needs to be vivid, but I would like to also say that we can't tie to memory. Memory is a very important factor that sometimes we don't take in consideration. There was a study 6 ago in Czech Republic about how communities were building their houses next to the river. And they found out that after major flooding, they quickly adapted their buildings so that they sealed better with the drainage. They had a better canalization. They had roofs that were a bit more, go down the higher steep. So the water could, go down more efficiently. But within just 60 years, that knowledge was lost. The memory of that event was lost. And then after 65 years, another flood came. And what? People were so affected they need to relocate permanently. Another similar story happened in Poland. I'm actually Polish. Originally it happened in Poland. We had a big flooding from the genuine law that came to Poland. And it was called the second millennium flood, because in 1999 or 1997, I'm not entirely sure, I was born in, but in that year there was also a millennial flood. So now they're saying, oh, why is there a millennial flood every 25 years? So, well, but even by referring to those events, we create that awareness, we create the connection, the link of memory. People better understand what impacts would be if they had the prior story, the prior experience, right? So if you tell them, oh, it could look like the event from 1999, it would know, oh, yes, I know, because we didn't leave the house for 7 days. There was completely flat and we need to have big refurbish. So there is that climatological basis on which we agree that the possible impacts. Then there is the guidance that stems from the impact-based information that will take into consideration the memory experience. It is much easier and connected to prior events, and then hopefully we take action in some way. So again, I hope this was very short and informative in some way. Hopefully, if you have any questions at all, feel free to ask or send me a call. Thank you.
Grazie Utile.